Scott Lounsbury and team. They're representatives from our team here at Choice Solutions, but want to thank you guys for joining us and Sharon, and I'll turn it over to you guys. So thank you.
Awesome. Thanks so much for having me here today, Dana, Trent, and team. Really great to work with Choice Solutions. I know you've been really committed to our partnership, and looking at your list of strategic partners, obviously it's an honor to be counted among them, particularly because you can tell that Choice has curated best of breed solutions for delivery of your vision to your clients. So, real excited to be here today. So today we're going to be talking about IGEL OS. This is something that some of you may be familiar with. Many of you may not. IGEL OS is really designed to be the secure endpoint OS for now and next. So I'm Jamie Halscott. I'm the senior technology evangelist for IGEL. It's basically a fancy way of saying I get to talk a lot and actually get paid for it. So that's kind of a nice thing. But getting to do these webinars and communicate with our partners like Choice is really important to me. It lets us convey our value. I can talk tech, I can talk finance, I can talk everything that we want to, and certainly how to build that best of breed solution with IGEL. I'm joined today by a few different folks from Choice Solutions. If you wouldn't mind introducing yourselves.
Yep, I am Trent Giddings. I am the core manager over our managed services team. What that really means is I manage our expert engineers that work 24/7 to make sure our customer environments stay top notch and in shape.
And I'm Scott Lounsbury, implementation engineer on the core team under Trent. I primarily focus on the new customer onboardings and customer build.
Awesome, awesome. So let's go ahead and jump into this. Obviously, I'm going to talk a lot about IGEL OS, but I think it's probably going to be important for us first and foremost to get an understanding of what Choice does. Right? We had an amazing intro from Dana, but Trent, would you mind telling us a little bit more about that so that the audience is really clear about where you fit in this?
Yeah, absolutely. As Dana alluded to, we've been doing managed services for a long time. We've had with established partners in many different aspects, from finance to healthcare, from different technology stacks, Windows, Linux, hypervisors galore. From a managed service perspective, our goal is to establish a partnership with you to help elevate your business where it is today to where you want it to be in the future. From your on-premise goals to your hybrid and future cloud dreams. Our goal is to be enablers to help you get where you want to be. And with that, one of the things that we're trying to help with is IGEL managed services. So what that really means from our perspective is going to be working with our expert engineers that are highly certified, that work across a 24/7, across many different time zones, whenever, wherever it may be, for whatever level of expertise you need, we've got it. Our goal is to make sure that we fit the customer where they are with whatever tailored aspect of support they need. If it's management of their UMS on-premise or just licensing, or full stack to include all of the different profiles and the application upkeep that needs to be in place to make sure that everything is secure at the endpoint, we'll take care of that. That's our responsibility and our pleasure, because we've been invested into this IGEL relationship for such a long time with, as I said, so many experts across the board, professional services to managed services, our NOC teams, our core teams, wherever it may be. We've believed in IGEL and the secured endpoint this entire time across our entire team. With that, like I said, it is a tailored support method where we can help you from 10 IGELs to 10,000 IGELs. Wherever you are, our goal is to allow for relentless growth in whatever aspects of business you are in, to allow you to focus on the things that really benefit your business. Most people don't need to spend hours perfecting profiles, making sure that applications are secure, making sure that all the things that need to be there to keep your environment up and running are in place. There's so many things on everyone's to-do list. allow us to take this from you. We can help and be um, really good shepherds to make sure that security first and uptime always. And at the end of the day, we can say all of those things and provide some savings and some simplicity around licensing, around endpoints, and just the full stack of IGEL as a whole. As I said, we've invested in this partnership because we believe in it. Our managed services stands 10 toes down with everything from securing the endpoint to securing the hypervisor. This is the right way for us to move. And um, our goal is to make sure that your critical applications, your critical profiles, your production and DR have a seamless transition for whatever emergencies may come, that your endpoints, that your end users don't have to feel the impact. So
Awesome.
yeah,
Awesome. And I can't say enough again how thankful we are for the relationship. Choice Solutions has made tremendous investments in IGEL, from training, from enablement, from ensuring that any solution that you build is supportable. And we really take the same kind of tact of that you do, that we're building these kind of bespoke solutions to fit the business, not the other way around. And I
right.
think that's critical. When I looked at our webinar registration list today, I saw there were folks from all kinds of different sized businesses, every vertical you can imagine, from healthcare to financial services to manufacturing to nonprofits. Building those solutions for each is going to really be that kind of custom solution, and you have to have the technologies and the team to support it. So between both of us, I'm really excited about that. So we know now what Choice does, obviously. And let's talk a little bit about what IGEL does. And I'm not going to talk tech first, right? First and foremost is what we're trying to do here. We're trying to fix your problems to make businesses work better. Right. That's what we all want to do here. I spent many years as a CTO. I love technology, but technology itself doesn't sell anything. Right. It's a solution you're trying to fit. What are we really trying to do here? We're trying to make the business operate effectively, and we're trying to do so within the confines of what we found are shrinking budgets. No one is getting more CapEx and OpEx money. It's just not happening. We're looking for ways to be leaner, to do more with less. What does that look like? And, echoing off what Trent and Dana said, making these simple. All right. It doesn't have to be complex to do what you need to do. In fact, you don't want it to be. Complexity breeds problems, breeds supportability issues. It makes it very difficult for us to create solutions that fit your business, and that are supportable long term. And what we want to do, just like Choice, we want to support the key technologies that drive that forward. And I'm going to go through our ecosystem, where that fits, how we're flexible to fit in any number of different use cases. And really these days, security is first and foremost. IGEL as a company has really been driven around the notion of being secure first and securing the endpoint and the edge from bad actors. And we're going to talk a little bit more about what that looks like technically. And again, removing that complexity and providing a level of stability. What you're going to find is no matter what your back-end infrastructure is, any of the different solutions that Choice will provide, we will be able to support that, right? We think of ourselves like Switzerland. So we're able to make this kind of stability. IGEL will be that key piece at your endpoint that's going to support no matter what kind of delivery mechanism you want for applications, desktops, whatever that may look like. So real quickly, what is IGEL, right? It's the secure endpoint OS for now and next. Real quickly. If I can tell you nothing else about that, if you take nothing else away from this, that's what we do. We are one thing. We are an endpoint operating system that's designed to be as secure as possible and support all of your current application delivery, your service delivery, in a centralized, controlled manner. So what does that really look like from a technical standpoint, right? I'm not going to dive into the tech too much, but what we've created is something we call the preventative security model. And this is really the core of it. And it's designed here to, from the ground up, rethink what an operating system should be on the endpoint, right? I'll talk a little bit about Windows in a moment, but what IGEL has decided to do was create the lightest weight, most flexible, most secure operating system to be deployed at the edge. And for us, it doesn't really matter what kind of device that is. If it's an x86 64 based system, chances are we support it. I have an entire lab here of machines from going back to 2012, 2014 that run IGEL OS just fine, as do the latest AI PCs. So we really want it to be as flexible as possible, and we've partnered with Choice to provide those solutions, not just from a software standpoint, but from a hardware standpoint as well. So IGEL OS is a read-only operating system. There is no way to modify it. It is designed to be exactly what it is. There's no local data on that operating system. It is essentially stateless. So we don't deal with profiles or things like you'd normally deal with in Windows. We can control identities though. So we'll support multi-factor and we'll support single sign-on, right? Ping, Okta, Entra ID, Workspace ONE, access, whatever you want as a solution for user access to the operating system, we'll support that. And we'll even be able to pass that into whatever your different vendors are for VDI, for DAS, for browser-based access, for application publishing. It doesn't matter to us what's on the back end. And it's a modular design. So when you get IGEL OS out of the box, there's nothing on it. There's not a browser, there's not a notepad, there's nothing. It is literally a blank slate just to run the basic hardware. And then you layer on top of it modularly exactly what you need. Think of this a lot like the Apple iOS model or the Android Play model, where the operating system doesn't do anything itself and the applications enable everything there. So it really adheres to that principle of least privilege that we want to do. And even the configurations and setup that are on the devices are encrypted. So any data, even in transit on the system, is going to be encrypted, and only the applications that we want to run on it will run. So we have an entire model of trust from the moment the device boots through the operating system loading into the applications that you want to run. If any of that has been modified, it either won't load those modules or it won't boot at all. And reinstalling an IGEL OS device, again, is stateless, and it takes on the personality of what you want it to be based on a centralized configuration and management. So as Trent said, managing one IGEL device, 10 IGEL devices, or 10,000 really isn't all that different. And what we're doing here with this model is we're eliminating things. We're eliminating these endpoint agents, antivirus, EDR, any kind of VPN clients that you need. All of the communications can be done through IGEL OS without the need for that. We do support them for organizations that have, say, a checkbox where they need that kind of compliance. A lot of times CISOs will still want that. We do support major vendors for that, but they're not required. There's nothing that a malware infection can do to an IGEL device. IGEL OS has never been hacked. It's designed that way. But again, we had the benefits of being able to create that over the last 20 years to be that way. And if you do end up in a situation where something is a problem, a simple reboot fixes the system. It goes back to the known good state, and it gets its commands from a centralized UMS, like Trent alluded to there. But for us, we are supporting all kinds of different major vendors for SASE, for ZTNA, for any number of different solutions we layer on top, and I'll go into those a little bit more. So we say reduces attack surface by 95%. It's really closer to 100, but no one can ever say in this world certainty. So that's the real core of that. So what are the challenges we're facing right now? Kind of the big dog of these challenges is the Windows 10 end of life. What do we do about that, right? And I love this picture from Reddit. It's the mildly infuriating subreddit, which is one of my favorites. It's things that are just annoying enough, but they're not terrible. Well, we're dealing here with months now. It used to be years. Now we're down to a time crunch where we have to figure out what we do with Windows 10. A lot of folks are using this as a transition to a VDI, a DAS, browser-based delivery of applications, but you still have endpoints you have to deal with, right? Now, what do you do about that? So what are your options, right? Well, we can spend a lot of money. We can replace these Windows 10 with Windows 11 on supported systems, maybe. That's obviously a tremendous amount of labor to do that. Or we can buy new systems. That's always an option. Or we can replace Windows at the endpoint with something else, which is what I'm going to obviously advocate for. Or we can always just give up IT completely, right? Become a hermit, go live in the woods, embrace nature. There's not a day that goes by, honestly, I don't think about that myself, as AI knows more about me than I know about myself. But at the end of the day, we still live in a technology world, and we need that technology to enable our businesses to do what they do. And why is this important, right? A lot of those systems out there, even modern systems, aren't going to work. So I'm a big Seinfeld fan, and if anybody recognizes this character, you'll know him. No TPM 2.0, no Windows 11 for you. You're just not going to get it. And that seems to be one of the biggest challenges we've seen here. So you're not going to be able to run these modern operating systems. IGEL OS doesn't care. right? We'll run on anything. And in fact, I'll tell you a little bit about how we can even emulate the TPM 2.0 to run Windows inside of IGEL if you wanted to. But what we're really doing is we're trying to make this easy. I myself have looked at options for taking the systems from Windows 10 to Windows 11, and for whatever reason, I don't know why, it seems to be becoming a major problem. Anyone who's gone down the path of the Windows 11 migration has seen that 24H2 is an update like no other before. For whatever reason, it seems to break a lot more than it fixes, right? And don't take my word for it. These are leading industry insiders who are talking about it, right? Now, that's a big problem. We're seeing organizations that are trying to roll out maybe a Windows 11 upgrade, and in a lot of cases, to use Windows 11, ironically connect to Windows 11 in the cloud or Windows 11 in a VDI. I don't know why you would do that, but we see that, and it's getting worse. Like, why is this getting worse? This is 2025. We shouldn't have these problems. Okay, well, let's say you're going to replace new systems. You got supported hardware and all that. I'm not going to get involved in politics. It's not my place to say, but I think we can all understand that things are getting more expensive. Whatever the reason is, I don't know, but we do know that we're seeing these. It's hard for people to justify wholesale expenditure. If you're replacing 10,000 PCs, I don't care how cheap you get them, that is tremendous cost. You've got to deploy, you've got to manage profiles. There's a lot of work there. So we want to say, how do we do this as cost effectively as possible? Well, what does that look like if we decide to replace Windows at the endpoint? You know, a lot of times people are saying, what about Mac OS? Or what about Linux at the endpoint? And those are really good options on a small scale, but the cost and prohibitive nature of managing those on a large scale is going to be difficult. How do you ensure compliance? I know the tools out there simply aren't mature enough. What if we could take the best of both of those, right? A good, usable user experience from, say, a Mac OS with kind of the lightweight, secure nature of Linux, kind of put it all together and use that at the endpoint. And that's really what you've got with IGEL OS. So what we're looking to do here is protect you and make it as simple as possible, but also make it as secure as possible. We're seeing the attacks keep coming, right? And this is where I say give up IT completely, become a hermit, embrace nature, because we're continuing to see threats out there, and those threats are continuing to evolve. What we've seen recently is a rapid uptick, excuse me, in the use of AI for coding, writing malware. The malware is kind of an AI arms race of how do we protect versus how do we actually do it, and it's becoming more and more cost prohibitive to do so. We're finding where there used to be the concept of a zero-day exploit. Maybe you had 2 months, 6 months, 8 months to fix that. You don't anymore. You have hours before that's exploited. Once that code is there, machines can create it and machines can exploit it much more quickly than any human could. And what does that really cost us, right? It's going to be loss of revenue, loss of productivity, reputational damage, cost of cleanup. We're seeing here, some of you I see are in the medical field, we've got HIPAA 2.0 requirements that you're going to have to be back up and functional to some degree within a 72-hour window. That's almost impossible to do in a Windows environment. I'm going to be honest with you. So what we're trying to do here is say, how do we mitigate this? Speaking of being impossible to do in 72 hours, I was presenting at a Microsoft office, by the way. And this was in Texas last year, right after we had the CrowdStrike outage. This was actually 6 weeks later, and it was still stuck at a blue screen at the Amerant Bank. This was in their lobby. We just happened to walk down for lunch, and I took a picture of this. So Windows at the endpoint is proving to be a continual problem for businesses of all sizes. How do you manage it? How do you fix it? How do you keep it secure? It's tremendously expensive. So, and I'm going to quote somebody. This guy's a lot smarter than me. And he once said that Windows is the most flexible general purpose operating system ever created. It's 40 plus years of continual development, evolution, millions of man hours. So, I quoted myself. It's a little pretentious, but the point is, Windows is a fantastic operating system. I am a shameless fan of Windows, but I want to put Windows where it belongs, right? In the data center, it's protected, where you can run applications, where you have ease of recoverability, you have an ease of deploying applications, centrally managing and controlling it. If there's a problem, a ransomware outbreak that happens to get through the advanced solutions that are there, it's much, much easier to redeploy those gold images, or it's much easier to roll back a cloud PC. Things like the CrowdStrike incident were mitigated on platforms like Windows 365. But again, the problem is still on the endpoint, and the endpoints took weeks or months to correct. So it might sound like I'm bashing Windows again. I don't. I'm a big fan of Windows. In fact, we just had our annual conference. We do 2 of these a year. And this is a good friend of mine, Scott Manchester. He's the VP of product for Windows 365 and Azure Virtual Desktop, talking about what really fits next. So our conference is called Now Next. We're always pleased to have him as a keynote speaker. This was his 7th time, where he talked about absolutely, Windows in the data center, Windows in the cloud makes the most sense. So how do we get there? And he's been a big proponent of us at IGEL and how we have a very different way of doing that. But what does that really look like? What does Windows and IGEL together look like? What does service delivery look like? And there's really 4 pillars to the way that we deploy IGEL. Like I said, I have legacy hardware, x86, 64 hardware that can run IGEL perfectly. You can deploy IGEL directly onto the systems. We also have the ability to use a secure boot from a USB device. And this is something that allows you to boot into IGEL OS. It will deploy all the configurations, all of the applications that are needed. They stay resident on the USB. Again, there's nothing that can be written other than what we say can be written. And you can use this for situations like call centers, or if you have a BYOD policy where someone has a home laptop and you need them to work later, but you want them to only have secure access to your environment. This really supports a zero trust initiative that a lot of companies are coming down to when dealing with a BYOD device. And for customers that don't have that ability, right, we actually have a new dual boot mode where we can configure your Windows PCs. We can say you're transitioning to IGEL, but you're not quite sure about it. If you do end up in a situation where there is a ransomware outage, an update outage, something like we saw last year, you can easily boot into IGEL OS, and it actually comes with a 90-day license to be able to run that. And then you can choose, when speaking with Choice Solutions, what kind of model does that look like going forward, and what can be transitioned as easily or as quickly to IGEL OS. And then the last one we had, and we just introduced this in March, was our managed hypervisor. This was more of a niche item that was designed for supporting legacy workloads. So we find that we would all love to be on the latest and greatest versions of Windows, but we found that things like ATM machines, medical devices, many of those run Windows 95, 98, NT 4.0, which was my first real foray into Windows management, that have applications that simply won't run in modern environments, or they shouldn't run in modern environments. If they do, they have to be air-gapped, they have to be completely off the network, and they require a lot of labor to manage. So what we decided was, what if we could run legacy workloads and legacy Windows inside the framework of a centrally managed, centrally configured IGEL OS, where we could start and stop virtual machines, transition them, and this use case has proven to be very successful. We don't require any kind of ports to be accessible. Everything tunnels through one port when we're managing it with IGEL OS. So we've now got this 4th way to do that. And that's how I run my desktop. My desktop, I'm talking to you on today, is running IGEL OS. It has our managed hypervisor. I use that for testing and development on Windows as well as Linux. We can even run all the way back to MS-DOS on that. So if I do find a workload that I can't do, or it's not supported by my cloud PC or my VDI infrastructure, I can always spin it up locally. So there's no reason where IGEL doesn't fit any use case at this point. So let's talk about some of those other mechanisms, right? I talked about the UD Pocket, and that's the ability for us to boot from a USB drive. Clean version of IGEL OS allows us to use devices that are there. This is really cool too if you have been the victim of a ransomware attack. and you want to get your infrastructure back up and running. You can take your cloud PCs, you can take your VDI, you can spin them up on demand, only what you need to support your workloads and your businesses. And even if the machine was compromised, the base Windows PC was compromised, we don't write anything to the hard drive. We can boot, we can have you back up in minutes, and all of that data and information is preserved for forensic analysis. So this is just like our dual boot. We don't need to touch the hard drive at all. Everything can happen within the confines of this. You plug it in, you boot up, it's completely separated, completely isolated. It has no access to the local drive, and everything is containerized in this encrypted environment. So again, the most secure way of dealing with that and allowing you to meet those requirements like the upcoming HIPAA 2.0 requirements. Well, what else can we do, right? Let's take a look at that IGEL managed hypervisor. We can run those Windows systems, and we can run them immutably. So even if you were to say, you know what, I've got all this great hardware circa 2019, 2020, it may have the wrong processor, it may not have the TPM 2.0 chip, you can actually isolate your Windows workloads and even create them in an immutable environment to run on top of IGEL. We had a couple of customers that came to us immediately after we announced this and said, yeah, we'd love you to run IGEL OS so we can run Windows inside of IGEL OS on unsupported hardware. So we can emulate that TPM chip, we can do all those things, and you can use it as a stopgap as you move towards, say, a browser-based application delivery solution, or you use a VDI or DAS solution, or any number of combinations thereof. IGEL OS still becomes that core, right? Just like Choice Solutions is going to build around all of those different things, kind of being that Switzerland, having best-of-breed solutions, you can tailor this to your business, not the other way around. We're not going to force you into using IGEL OS in a specific way. And how do we do that? It's all really through our broad app ecosystem. What we're designed here to do is to partner, and we've partnered with over 100 vendors, it's really about 120 at this point, to make native apps. So whether it's Windows 365, whether it's Omnissa Horizon, whether it's the Island browser, whether you're using Citrix, all of those are supported for us. We have native now progressive web apps. We just introduced those. So the entire Google suite and the entire Office suite can now be run as progressive web apps on IGEL OS. So a lot of the challenges to wide-scale deployment of IGEL OS, where it used to be thought of as a thin client OS, now are completely mitigated. You can run thick apps on that. Or again, with combinations of your IGEL managed hypervisor or your VDI, you can run some of those heavier workloads that you might need to for, say, manufacturing, Autodesk, CATIA, some of those workloads. You can now run those either locally or run them in VDI. But we'll support all kinds of different solutions for monitoring, right? We saw ControlUp as a partnership with Choice, running that as a digital user experience, something Dana talked about initially, having that digital user experience be as clean as possible, ensuring that your end users are able to do exactly what they need to do, that they're not perceiving any kind of slowdowns, they're not perceiving any kind of hiccups in that service delivery is great. And then we support any number of different peripherals. So I'll talk about those in just a moment. But realistically, what we're looking at here is this is the IGEL Ready ecosystem. So we have everything from unified collaboration. So for call centers, we're finishing up Avaya, we're finishing up Five Nines, we're finishing up Ring Central for native use inside of IGEL OS. Of course, we have offload capabilities. So if you're running those inside of a VDI, we have offload capabilities for that as well to make sure that user experience is the best you can have. But we support everything you could pretty much imagine. And if it isn't supported, it's going to be very shortly. We're constantly adding new members to the IGEL Ready family in order to make sure that we can run in whatever kinds of context that you want. So just architecturally, here's what it would look like, right? This is kind of a day in the life of the IGEL OS ecosystem. We have everything running on thin devices, all-in-ones, mobiles from our partners like HP, LG, Lenovo. It's all centrally managed through our UMS, which Trent alluded to and I've talked about very briefly. And that's going to allow us to connect to VDI, to DAS from any of the major vendors, right? We support Amazon Web Services, Omnissa, Microsoft, Citrix, Parallels, Dision. It doesn't matter to us. We're not going to lock you into any vendor for who you want to connect with. We have apps natively for all those. And of course, through various different browsers, we support our own Chromium-based browser, the Island browser, excuse me. We support the Citrix Secure Enterprise browser, and we're continuing to add browsers like Edge Firefox, all of those are natively supported as well. So being able to take this secure operating system endpoint that cannot be compromised and then allowing you to run secure browser-based applications on it is really an awesome way to deliver services. And from this too, we've introduced a lot more new modules. One of those for you is going to be the advanced device redirection. We're particularly proud about this. One of the biggest challenges we found when you're running a VDI or a DAS infrastructure is how do you get these specialized peripherals to run and to pass through correctly? Pretty much everything you can think about now will pass through. We spent about 18 months developing this solution so that now everything from generic USB devices to serial port devices, webcams, microphones, biometrics, signature pads, doesn't matter to us, will pass through. So we found this to be extremely important in manufacturing, extremely important in healthcare, which is our number one vertical, and letting this work in, say, a point of sale or a commerce type environment, that as well. So again, we want to bend IGEL OS and its flexibility around your business needs, not the other way around. And that IGEL Advanced Device Redirection supports any number of different platforms. So Microsoft's AVD and the Windows 365 Cloud PCs, Citrix, both for their desktops and apps, Omnissa Horizon, and Amazon Workspaces. And if there's weird scenarios like multi-hop, it doesn't matter. It's an extremely low latency direct connection that we have. It supports things like single and multi-session hosts. So if you're running, say, Windows 10 or Windows 11 multi-session AVD, doesn't matter to us. It isolates to the sessions and allows the devices to be shared if possible, or isolated to a session. And it allows us to do whatever we want to keep those security and compliance there while supporting that. So what does this look like from a management standpoint? How are we managing this entire thing? And that's the power of IGEL OS, right? Otherwise, it's just an operating system that's secure sitting on the endpoint, but you're still going to have somebody manage it. We use something we call UMS 12, and you've seen we seem to prefer dark mode everywhere. My background here today, and everything, and our color scheme. What we're able to do here is across the entire enterprise, we create profiles for what apps are deployed. What are the settings for the apps? We can use geolocation for that. We can use group membership for that. We can do any number of different things with integrations that we have. Because again, we integrate with things like Entra ID. So any of the different functions that you have, we can integrate and run those through our UMS. And deploying, again, 10 IGEL devices, or as Trent said, IGELs. I like that. I like the plural of the, and I say IGEL devices. Yes, 10 IGELs or 10,000 IGELs, right? It's really as simple as what you want. If you're running all in a Windows session, say an AVD session, all you have to do is set up your profile for everyone. Here's where it goes. Here's the server farm that you want, and that's it. And we can even pass those single sign-on credentials from them across, and that's how I sign on every day. So we're integrated with that, and it makes it very simple for us to do things. So what are we really trying to get you to do here? Following on to what Dana started with, what Trent talked about, is kind of rethink your strategies, rethink about what you're doing with this. What does that look like? And for us here, it's really going to be eliminating things. You've got those high CapEx costs of buying new systems that were high performance at the time, but you ran Windows, you layered a bunch of management agents on it. It started to run like it's stuck in mud and doesn't really work well for you. You have a quick refresh cycle of 3 to 5 years before you got to buy another one. And again, those management and security agents are expensive. So you're layering those on top. So we're trying to reduce that. And we're trying to reduce those operating expenses. You know, we saw with the deployment of 24H2 Windows 11 that it's expensive. Etching, testing, maintaining, managing, monitoring, dealing with all that, remediating problems. It's extremely expensive. And we're trying to, again, with our preventative security model, fix that whole broken monitor, detect, remediate, where you know the bad guys are going to get in and how do you respond to it. And that's just not that's not an answer that's acceptable in 2025. And what does that really look like? We typically find our customers are saving about 75% by switching to IGEL OS. And that's a bold claim, but we can run on much thinner hardware. We have much further extended lifespans on that hardware. There's much less resources required to install, configure, manage, maintain that. We typically will find that, say, if it's about $1 million per 1,000 devices to manage, which is what it really costs most enterprises, we can usually trim that down to about 250,000. So you're probably looking at these numbers and saying that's completely crazy. There's no way you can do that. But what we've done is we've partnered with a leading provider of ROI and TCO calculations to create models for us. Those models are something that we have access to at IGEL, but not only that, Choice Solutions has access to these models as well. So as you partner with Choice and you look at your overall IT budgets, you can use these models with the information they give you. And it's going to be as good as the data that you provide them and to provide us for things like what are you paying for labor? How many hours does it take to do X, Y, or Z? Have you had a malware infection before? What does that cost to remediate? What are the cost of your endpoint agents? What's your refresh cycle on hardware? What if you could extend that a year, 2 years, 3 years? What does that look like to you? And we typically find, I say 75%. In some cases here, this was a 40,000 endpoint. This was a medical client of ours. They were saving right at about $41 million or 90%. Right. Really, really big. And I'm not even including things like you see here, reduced risk of major security incident. Security is one of our key things, but they put that as a low priority. They didn't think that was likely to happen with their other solutions in place. They were really looking at here things like reduced costs for unneeded AV. They were looking at labor shifting, being able to take that away from help desk and the amount of tickets they had. They looked at things like how much more quickly could folks access their VDI and their Epic HMR systems running on IGEL. 6 minutes here, 2 minutes there, that all adds up when you're talking about, 40,000 different practitioners that were using IGEL. We were able to calculate that for them. So I know not everyone here is medical, so we're going to talk about a couple other ones real quick, and then I'm going to transition it back. This was an energy one. And this here, all these slides, I didn't create them. These are generated by our tool and our system that Choice has access to allow them to create this business justification for you. So energy endpoints here, tremendous amount. 3-year total was about $177 million in savings on that. Now, not everybody's that big. So I'm going to include one last one, and that's financial. Financial here, 1,600 endpoints. We were really looking at a 3-year savings, about $3 million. So these are real quantifiable numbers that make sense. We typically find by switching to IGEL OS, that alone will pay for the cost difference for any of the on-prem or cloud solutions that you want for VDI, DAS, browser-based delivery of services and applications. So with that, I'm going to transition it back to Trent and team because I know we have some Q&A sections, and let Dana wrap it up.
Yeah.
Jamie?
So,
Yeah, go ahead,
oh,
Trent.
yeah, thank you, Jamie, for kind of running through that. I just wanted to give a quick touch point on everything that we discussed here from a managed services perspective. As you said, this ROI calculator is included within the Choice ecosystem, so that in itself can help provide some information for business owners and other leaders of their IT departments to get some quantifiable real data to be able to make a position for where they want to go now and next, right? We want to make sure that we're able to provide those licenses for whatever deployment strategy you have at a savings for the customer at the end of the day. I think all of these things really hit true to where we stand as a managed services organization and how we want to position ourselves to be able to aid and enable our customers in whatever technology and stack they have. That bit of flexibility and adaptability is why one of the reasons why we stand behind IGEL.
Yeah, thanks. Great input, Trent. So I know there's been a few questions. We've answered them. I think some of the content went through them. I will say there's going to be a survey as soon as we wrap up. So if you could just mark, sometimes the best thing is to get a live conversation. And we've got some phenomenal team members that we can get like a 1 hour follow-up consultation. Again, like Jamie said, love Windows, love running Windows on the endpoint. Something that's kind of stuck out to me and listening to the CEO for IGEL just speaking, and I had a chance to go to the IGEL Now Next conference, but this concept of fit for purpose. So just understanding your workforce and understanding what they need, the services, the apps to be most productive and have a great consistent, secure experience to do the work they their role for the team. And so fit for purpose. And you might have use cases in your organization, in your enterprise, where this is a great fit, or you think it might be a great fit as a possible alternative to the cost and the efforts to go from Windows 10 to Windows 11, or whatever the use case might be. So, some great insights there. I mean, just like, it's just like those things you think about. What if? What if I can reduce the need to have all these security tools on some of these endpoints or kiosks or different things that you might have within your organization? Have to not have to have a need for all those tools and advanced security options. And what if you secure the endpoint, and then now as you're moving more and more of your applications and your services to being SaaS delivered, what if you can now secure that browser that you're using to access all those, like Jamie is talking about, progressive web apps? If you're able to, your organization's in a state where you can start moving in that direction. What if you can secure the endpoint, now secure the browser, and now, just how much uh, risk mitigation you're taking off of, your top targets for breaches and cyber attacks, and then focus on the data center, the cloud services, and protecting there. So just a lot of what ifs there. And if you're thinking about it, just encourage, let's have a conversation. And again, we can get resources from our team, explore it, see if it's a good fit, talk through your business, your users, your workforce. And then again, we've got flexible options for how you might want to consume the technology, whether it be something we can provide as a service for your organization, or something you acquire the service and we're helping you deploy it and really get off and successful with it, with the applications, peripherals, things you might have in your environment. So just a few thoughts there, and then I'll know, Jamie, if there's any closing thoughts you have on your perspective.
No, this is great. I mean, obviously, we partnered with Choice for a reason. That you guys have the same philosophy and organizational beliefs that we do about building really great things, right? A team that's able to support and build technologies and sets that fit the business, not the other way around. And together we can build some great stuff. So anything that you need from our team, always feel free to reach out. And certainly, IGEL stands behind Choice and their ability to deliver on IGEL solutions.
Yeah, Jamie, again, we really appreciate you joining us today. Again, if there's anything additional conversation or thoughts, questions, we appreciate the feedback on the survey. Always listen and try to dial in on the events. We want to make sure we're bringing value to you and respecting your time. And if you have questions, just let us know. Let's have additional conversation. Let's talk it out and see if it's a good fit for you. So, with that, Trent, Scott, Jamie, thank you. We greatly appreciate it. Everyone had an awesome day. We appreciate it.